I didn't hear the
recording. Oh, now we're being.
That's what I hadn't heard.
Well, you don't lose any of those words of wisdom on that. Got to push it. Let's start.
Happy New Year, everybody. Tonight's January 2023 OLUG meeting is about alternative distributions. I have no idea. My mobile phone decided he wanted to do some Google work for me. Anyway, it's not John's fault. So, but the important thing here is we've only got one speaker for 2023, and it's Aaron tonight. So if you're interested in speaking, please contact me by the mailing list or on Discord, or even, I don't know, snail mail, whatever. Our next meeting would be, I believe, the 2nd. No, that's not right. No, the next one is on the 7th. February 7th. So you've got a little time. And of course, we still need more topics for the rest of the year. I've posted out on LinkedIn, and I've posted out on Reddit, and I haven't heard any back from any of those channels yet. So we'll see if we get anybody else. Anyway, I'm going to say, once again, Happy New Year, and I'm going to turn this over to Aaron. Thank you. First off, I'd like to volunteer chat for a slide.
I think that's what we need. So let's get going. Tonight's talk is just a little talk. I've been playing around with some different distributions this year. Every couple of years, I have what I consider almost to be like a crisis of faith, where I like, hey, maybe I want a different distro. Maybe I should take a look at something new. I always go screaming back to Debbie, don't get me wrong, but I've ended up with like an Arch laptop here, Fedora there or something. And this year I've been really impressed with some of the new technologies coming down in terms of containerization, mutable file system stuff. And this is just, we're going to talk about 4. I've got 2 other ones I've got to mention on a slide, and I've got like 3 other ones I want to mention. So we got plenty to talk about. So let's go ahead and get going. All right. Come on. Give me the next slide there. Yeah. Hey,
Ross, how you doing?
now the party can start. So if anybody has questions or comments, please feel free to pop at any time. We're very informal at OLUG. If I start to mumble, let me know, which I mean, like really mumble, like, but I mean, regular mumbling is just part of the deal. There are a lot of other options to consider. These are just some of the ones I'm looking at. There's other ones, if you consider it to be interesting, by all means, bring it up. I'm not saying any of these is necessarily the future of Linux, but the future of Linux is going to have a lot of components that these have in common. It's kind of like a couple of years ago when I did a talk on Docker, and I was like, yeah, that's going to be big. So we'll get going. So the classic Linux distribution approach is as follows. You have your basic system, conforming to the Linux file system hierarchy, package manager that handles dependencies, installed applications, etc. You throw installed applications onto the system, and they go to user SBin, user bin, wherever the hell they end up at, and so on and so forth. Packages are updated over time, replaced or upgraded as needed. Example of this are Fedora, Ubuntu, Debian, pretty much everything but Slackware. There are some drawbacks as well with this. The package installation requires admin privs, which always is not your favorite choice. Yes?
You're going to present your screen.
Am I not presenting my screen? Oh, I was going to present the, I should be sharing this. Oh, crap. Oh, am I not sharing this? Come on.
Go down to the bottom of the top.
Yeah.
No, you're already in.
Yeah. So, hang on a sec, everybody. Sorry.
That thing.
Now let's make it big again. Share screen. Should be sharing desktop 1, right?
Yep. Yeah. You gotta click share.
Yeah. I thought I was sharing that. My bad. Sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. I feel bad. Oh, I must have nailed it when I moved that over. That's how I did it. All right, so package installation requires admin privileges. Systems have drift over time. Does your workstation line up with other people's workstations? Do you have everything exact same settings? What do you do and all this kind of stuff? And if an upgrade goes wrong, might be in trouble. One of my favorite stories is I had a Debian system that I was running, and I managed to break Synaptic on it. Oops, that's just the beginning. Then I'm like, Synaptic's not going to stop me. I'll just go to apt-get and start fixing it. I broke that. Then I started going to dpackage-i and started installing packages on that. And then finally, I started using Alien to convert the Debian packages to tar.gz files or Slackware files and install that on the system to do this. And I know you're wondering, do you have something valuable in that system? It's like, no, I just wasn't going to give up. But I made the system mine. It worked, but don't get me wrong, it took 6 hours and the system was never the same again. I rebuilt it like a month later, but I showed it who's boss. And that was the important thing. So tonight we're going to be talking about 4 major options: Fedora Silverblue, Gabo Linux, NixOS, and GNU GeeksOS. Well, let's take a look at Silverblue. We'll fire up in a second here, but Fedora Silverblue. It's Fedora, but it's not Fedora. At first glance, Silverblue looks just like a regular Fedora installation. There's several major differences between Silverblue and regular Fedora. Immutable operating system, read-only file system, atomic upgrades, no yum, DNF. You get Flatpak though, and you end up using Toolbox a lot. We cannot modify the underlying operating system. Let me fire it up real quick here. Boom, 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 boom. So here
Toolbox?
she is. A nice.
That's asking what's Toolbox.
Toolbox is a container environment that we talk about in about 4 slides, Matt. If you can hold on, but it's a really nice way of creating a mutable file system on top of a regular file system. We actually do a demo of it here in a little bit. So if you look at the system, you do uname-a, it looks like Fedora. Let's do something we shouldn't do. Sudo bash, always a good sign. Boom, 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 boom. Let's take a look at ls. You know, ls is annoying me today. rm-f user bin ls. No, you can't remove user bin ls. It is safe. What?
Can you make your font slightly bigger?
Yes, I can.
Because you're in the VM. There you go.
Yes, I am the
That
VM.
helps with the
Yes.
compression algorithm.
Yes.
Thank you.
But now we cannot remove base OS packages. There's no way to really do it from beside here. If we want to, we can go over to Etsy hosts and make a change to it. From the movie. There. So we can modify Etsy host, that we can actually modify. And how can we modify Etsy host? Because Etsy host is not considered to be an immutable file. So they went through and they figured out what you actually need to have be writable, what could be read-only. So we have the system lined up, so we really can't do anything bad to it right now. It's a pretty safe system. It's, yes.
Can you cat out Etsy OS release or something?
Yes.
Does it say Silverblue in it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Red Hat.
Yeah. It just identifies itself as Fedora Project 37 and it's Silverblue with home URL and stuff. So
Red Hat.
yeah, Fedora release 37. So it doesn't really know the difference what its difference between that and the regular Fedora is. As far as it's concerned, they're the same. Yeah. So nothing can modify the base operating system. So if you get a virus, you get anything going on, they can't modify the operating system through the regular commands. There's ways to do it, of course, which we'll talk about a little bit further down the road. So we can modify Etsy host. We already showed that. So how do you update the system? You use commands called OS-tree, which is RPM OS-tree. OS-tree is a whole versioning file system software that exists independently. It was created for the Atomic 4 version of Fedora. And it's a pretty cool thing. So let's give it a shot. And then you take a look and see what command I should have entered. Oh. The transaction is in progress. Oh, come on, you should be done with that by now.
Oh, it's been running in the background.
Yeah, it should be finishing up here pretty quick. OS RPM.
Override
Oh, yeah, there's all sorts of options in here.
status.
Let's do clear. Let's see what clear does. It doesn't like that one. RPM OS. Oh, cleanup. Oh, doesn't want to let me go back to it.
Just do status. Let's see what it does.
Yeah. Its status is it's busy. All right, so it's going to be doing this behind the scenes on me. Let's see if we can just tell it to do a refresh MD, so at least we can find out when it's going to do something. Come on, refresh the metadata. Let's go back to the slides while we got a minute, because it's going to be mean to me. So normally, when you do the upgrade either succeeds or fails. And there's not like a partial halfway through. If it doesn't succeed all the way through, it rolls back the upgrade, which is what you want in the situation. One of the things it also does is it creates a checkpoint. So you can roll back to that particular version of it. Like before I install a package, if I'm like, I don't like this package after all, I can either uninstall the package again, or I can roll back to a previous state. If wherever it is, I can get back to a previous version of it. And it does that through the magic of doing stuff with rub menus and stuff. It's very, very cool stuff. But so whenever you make a change to the system, for the most part, you do a reboot. That's how it works. You can swap while it's running, but I haven't always had the best of luck with that.
You get a list of the checkpoints now?
Yeah, you can get all that stuff if it's nice enough to let you know, which in this case, it's not going to be because it's the curse of the demo. So let's take a look at rollback. It's all screwed up because of this. It's in the refresh MD. Let me do a reboot on it. Let's see if that straightens it out.
Like metadata?
Yep. It's refreshing stuff behind the scenes. Hopefully this will get me back into it so I can take control back. But one thing to take a look at here is, come on. Come on, give me a little. See if we've outsmarted the system or not. You weasel. All right, so this is going to be.
You can't cancel the current transaction, then cancel.
Oh, well, let's do that.
Is it, maybe you don't have a good internet connection?
No, it's just that. It's got a plenty good interconnection. Okay, so we canceled the transaction because we read what the machine told us, which is what John's here for, besides just looking pretty. So we do check upgrade. It will come back saying there's 380 to upgrade, 3 to remove, 9 to add. So if we run that, which we won't in this case because we don't want to spend that much time on it, we'll instead do. You are really working it. So if we're going to install a GIMP, we can install a GIMP for using the OS tree commands. That's the equivalent of the regular system, but that has all the versioning, all the checkpointing, all that stuff built into it. And the thing about it is, if you install Fedora Silverblue, you install it, everybody at home installs it. And you go through your MD5 checks and everything, it will all be the same. We all have the same version of LS, environment, everything. There's no drift at that time. The only time it changes is when you do something through this. So, but that's not all the system works. It moves all the stuff from the regular components. Let's go ahead.
So it's essentially still doing the flat pack. That is the flat pack. Or is this different?
This is actually doing RPMs behind the scene,
All right.
but it has the locks on it and stuff like that. Because if you want to install Chrome on this thing, what you end up doing is you end up doing the RPM OS tree install with the RPM. It puts it in there, creates a checkpoint so you can roll back before Chrome and other things changes were made to the system.
Yeah.
So it just has a whole entire version of capability. And for the most part, you can't do anything with it as a regular user. And there's supposed to be some ways to be able to lock down the RPM OS tree so you can't even use that on the system. So theoretically, if you're thinking in terms of appliances and stuff like that, this comes out of Fedora's Atomic Core, Red Hat's Atomic Core stuff, which is where they're working on their environments. So it's pretty cool stuff. Let's see.
The flat pack OS tree related to this one?
RPM OS tree is manipulates the underlying RPMs. Flatpak is another package management system, like Snap from Ubuntu and stuff like that. You have the ability to use Flatpak with this as well if you want to. That's how you normally install most of your packages, because you shouldn't be spending your time playing with RPM OS tree, because that's how you're going to blow it up, as we've seen.
Play God.
It's amazing how well it works.
Playing root.
Yes. It goes back to the question, can God make a burrito so hot that God couldn't eat the burrito?
Oh. So it's done?
Yep. Stage and deployment. So it's going through the whole process of grabbing everything, putting it all together, creating a transaction, creating a commit. So there will be an additional thing on here as well. This normally has worked really well for me until tonight. And I do not know why. Okay, so let's see. Let's drop down to a user. And now we don't have
There's changes queued.
Oh, yeah. So the changes are queued for the next boot, like you said, very good. So how do I get back into the system to actually enable this version of GIMP? Because I installed that through RPM OS tree. You reboot again. And then what it does is it will apply that. And I will have GIMP available to me. And if I want to, I can do RPMS tree rollback and take GIMP off, go back to the previous state. There's SUSE has Tumbleweed, which has some similar capabilities. They do it using ZF, they do it using BetterFS, snapshotting capability. This is all built in the base OS using ext4 or however you want to do it. They can do it in a bunch of different ways, but it gives you an idea of some of what it can do. So it's just an entirely system. You can create a system that you can actually make modifications to, and you can pretty much give the users root on, and as long as you lock them out of a few things, they're pretty much.
So are you locked in for ext4 or do you do lock the one?
It doesn't ask you any questions to you when you do the install.
Okay.
It's Fedora 37, man. It's straight up.
It's made
Like
like
this
decisions
is the way.
for you.
This is the way, yes. To use a Mandalorian term, yes. But it's also more a technology demonstrator, because Red Hat is going to be doing more atomic stuff. And there's always the point of Fedora has always been to showcase what's going to go into future versions of RHEL and stuff. So now if we do, now we see we have GIMP. So everything is happy and dandy. And if we want to, we can roll it back, but everything is atomic, either habit or doesn't. Yes.
Well, I can in CFS boot manager and FreeBSD systems,
Mhm.
you can
Oh yeah.
go back to a different.
Oh yeah. No, you can go back through BetterFS or Tumbleweed. You can SUSE, you can do the same thing.
wouldn't change, and you can include into different.
Yeah.
Snapshots.
Yeah, no, you can just flip into a different environment here and stuff like that as well. You're not just stuck on the one. You can roll back and not destroy the future ones and all that kind of stuff. It has all that basic functionality. It's the same type of
So
intent.
rollback doesn't uninstall Kit.
No, it doesn't unless you want it to. There's additional
Right.
options you got to give it, but no, I'm sorry. Oh, didn't mean to. Sorry if I gave everybody the wrong impression on that one. But yeah,
Status.
so you see, we have right now, we have two versions of it. One that we applied GIMP to and the one we didn't apply GIMP to. So we can roll back to the previous one if we want to. It's all based on the base commit and stuff. It's all laid out pretty well. So it's a cool concept. I think it's gonna work its way into regular Fedora over time. Just think, is you're making it harder to modify the system, you're making it harder for malware to do things, you're just making the system more robust. And now you don't have to worry about my upgrade failed halfway through. I've got to start figuring out how I'm able to do stuff with RPMs. No, you don't have to. It handles it for you. So yeah, the OS is read-only, atomically upgradable, roll backable, works pretty well in that respect. I've been pretty impressed with how the overall scope of it works. One thing you can do with it is you can rebase it to Rawhide, which we'll take a look at. OS tree, remote refs, Fedora. That shows all the various iterations it has available to it. And we just care about x86 64. Knight or Knote or whatever, however you pronounce it. That is the KDE version of Silverblue. There's testing, there's that. There's also, if you go take a look, you can find. And this was the test I gave it the other day, which blew it up real good. If you don't know what Rawhide is the bleeding edge of Fedora. Your odds of successfully booting a Rawhide installation are between 5 and 10% most of the time I've tried it. It's probably closer to 50 really, but it's pretty annoying. So one of the things I did was I went through and said, hey, go ahead, rebase yourself on Fedora Rawhide Silverblue. And boom, you're on the edge. So I rebooted, did not work. Then I rolled back to the previous version of it and it did work. So I got back to a working system. So it's a whole concept. If you have like mission critical type stuff, it's a really cool concept. It has some really nice features to it. So one thing you don't get no Yum. You don't get no DNF. They are not part of your world anymore because it's all handled under the covers by Silvertree. So if you want to install something, you can do a flat pack, which flat pack, if you've ever dealt with in the past, it's good. It works. It's just an entire way. The one problem I have with flat pack is you tend to it tends to be inefficient in terms of disk space, but disk space is cheap nowadays because it has an entire containerized environment pretty much. Well, not for everybody it's cheap, but we're living like it's cheap. So Toolbox, that's the next thing we want to talk about. Toolbox provides you the ability to create a containerized environment that you can treat like a regular distribution. Let's take a shot at it. I should hopefully have run this already, because if not, this could take a couple minutes. Toolbox create. Oh, come on. It's going to pull from there. So what Toolbox does, and as I will talk while we wait for this to go, which half gig should take approximately 2 minutes, so hopefully we should be all right. So Toolbox creates an environment that looks like a regular Fedora 37. There's other toolboxes available. You can get an Ubuntu toolbox, a Arch toolbox, whatever kind of toolbox you want to. It's just a container. It's just a very nice little way of doing the handling the container logic. So what you do is you create the toolbox, you do toolbox enter, and then you can go ahead and be written inside that environment and set up your entire development environment you want to. You can install GIMP, you can install Visual Studio Code, you can do all sorts of stuff. and it's still locked down, so it runs as the user. In this case, when I go into Toolbox, whenever this thing finishes, I'll still be running as Growthy. So I won't be able to do anything that the underlying person can do. Yes?
Why is Bruce is calling that fat pack?
That's pretty good.
Is there some overhead there?
There is overhead. There's overhead with all of them. But,
Yeah, definitely.
oh, and it finished. Excellent. So we have an interface now. So we do Toolbox enter. And we wait a minute. Oh, shoot. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to do Toolbox enter as yourself. You want to do Toolbox enter as yourself, not root. Let's see if that works. All right. So now I'm in the Toolbox. So now I can do sudo bash. And I can do yum install. What's something I want to install? Xeyes. So I'm inside a environment inside here that allows me to make modifications to it because I'm running inside a container environment. So it's like a lightweight, really super lightweight VM. Come on, give me a response. So what you create here is you can also export this toolbox. So if I want to, I can take this toolbox from this Fedora Silverblue, take it to work, take it where I want to, stick on a USB stick, import it back in because it's all just a container. It's all Podman under the covers. It's the way it's the way of the future. It's just going to be the way you're going to have a situation where you're not going to give people root as much as you can avoid it. Because I mean, think about it. Anytime that certain places I know around town, someone uses root, they almost have to write down what the reason was for it. There's all sorts of wonderful stuff that has to happen. Just to happen. Come on, give me one more. Just 2, 3, 1. Come on, you're so close. And it's going to tell me here in a minute. It's going to tell me I do not have Firefox. It does not have Xeyes. This is what it's going to tell me. I'm going to be very angry. But yeah, so this is hitting the regular repos. Everything behind it is regular way going. Yes, 187K, all that for 187K. So now, Xeyes. But that's not installed on the base OS. The base OS is still immutable. That does not exist. That which Xeyes does not exist. And if I open up another terminal and do Docker PS, which I don't have Docker installed on there, of course. There's Podman running the command, running my toolbox. And if I exit that toolbox, it goes away. It doesn't go away. It's preserved the state inside information is available. Shows I just have the one toolbox. So it gives you all the capabilities to figure out which one to do. We can actually create import containers and stuff like that into this toolbox environment. So that's the way you supposedly are supposed to do things. It's supposed to be the better way of doing it because you don't have to give the end user root at all. They create their own environment. They do their own development. You let them fire up Node.js or whatever, and they are happy because they can install whatever tools they want to and take it with them. So the summary of Fedora Silverblue, read-only file system. Upgrades are atomic. I know I've mentioned that about a million times, but that is one of the things that I find really cool. Success or failure, there's no halfway state. Either it's going to work or it's not going to work. Upgrades can be rolled back, forward, purged, all that fun. No questions during the install about packages. You just get what you get. No yum DNF, RPM OS tree installs are possible. Flatpak is pretty cool in its own right. Toolbox uses containers. Looks like regular Fedora, but it's not. Like we mentioned earlier, some other distributions like SUSE's Tumbleweed, Ubuntu's core distribution also have the idea of immutable OSs as well. And there's some other ones we'll be talking about a little bit later that have some of similar ideas. But that's kind of an idea how to go. It's very cool. It looks like Fedora. It's just about as easy to use as Fedora once you get past a couple things, and you just can move on with the rest of your life. So let me save that bad boy. And I think I shut down the wrong one, but that's my day. So Gabo Linux. And I don't know if John remembers this, but him and I talked about this specific distro about 20 years ago. No, about No, it was actually about 15 years ago, we talked about Gabo, because we were talking about file system hierarchy.
Yep.
And it was actually when we were in the old place. So Gabo Linux, got it installed. Let's fire it up. And I want to fire up X. So what do? You start X. Yes, bringing back memories. It has a cool interface, has a cool design.
It's not XORG, it's actually X386.
It's kind of old in some ways. But
It's very Tron.
yes, I like the layout. But so Gabo Linux doesn't use a database for package management. The file system is the package management system. Radically different idea when they started doing this in 2003. No one else had figured it out at the time. So all installed programs are installed under programs. So we do a which ls. Let me do Control++ here, and it does not export that. Well, that's nice.
Programs for utils.
Yeah. So everything is under program. So if I do which GCC. Sorry, it's so small.
Can't get bigger.
Yeah. So if you do which GCC is /program/GCC 920 bin GCC. And if I have a later version of it on there, it'll be in there like GCC 13.0 and all that kind of stuff. And there's a pointer to whatever the version is, it's called latest. Let's go over and show you that. So the current version is laid out. So the current version is a pointer to a particular version, but everything on the system is laid out under here. Everything you expect, Git, dry cut, gparted, all the stuff is under here. And if someone wants to remove a package, what they do is they remove the file, remove the directory, it goes away. And if someone wants to add a package, they add a package to this. That's how the system works. It's laid out totally based around the file system. So if your file system gets corrupted, you're done. Yes.
So are they just charge EZs?
No, they're fully expanded and installed executables. There'd be an overhead if they were charged EZs, it probably wouldn't be. So the one thing about this is every time it does a command, it does almost anything, it's got to figure out dynamically what's going on. So there is a small overhead as it goes through and pretty much crawls the tree, but it keeps it in memory. But it's a really cool idea. It builds everything from source from repositories, which is the way you want it. So it's a cool distribution. It's kind of like bringing the FreeBSD port system, if you've ever played with that, to Linux. A bit of housekeeping with it. I had issues with this. This one actually kicked my butt. I haven't had my butt really kicked by a distro in quite a while. I tend to think I'm above average with Linux, so I tend to little surprised. So I actually had to break out the release notes to figure out how to get some stuff to work on here. Because if you take a look at one thing, let's start with this. So you do if config, you get ETH0. There's no loop back.
What about if config -A?
Nope. There is no loop back device defined. You have to define it. And here's the best part. If you want to install a package, you got to have LO0. You got to have loop back working. Trying to install packages, I had certificate issues, and it tried to install for Gabo 16, and I eventually kind of said, well, this is a cool concept, a cool design, and I'm probably not going to spend a lot more time with it right now. And then also this release I'm running, Gabo 17, is about 2 years old. They're still doing development on it, but it seems like it's been a while since the last. I mean, don't get me wrong, I run Debian. I'm not in exact position where I can talk about release schedule, you know what I mean? But it's a cool concept. I mean, they've been doing this for a long time. They go back to 2003 on doing this. They're 19 years old. Their last release was the 2 years ago that we're talking about. But it does like bring the BSD, free BSD port system to Linux. It's a cool concept. I'm glad they exist. I think a lot of their ideas have filtered out to other people's over time and stuff like that. And I think they're really a cool little OS. And if you've got a spare time for a VM and stuff, you want a little bit of a challenge, something to remind you of what the old days were like, it's not bad. Of course, like I said, it did start X automatically and stuff, but you can play around run levels, all that stuff, but I just wasn't really in the mood. I just thought the idea was cool though. So that's Gabo. Now Nix. OS, which is a declarative OS. If you are like me, and I know I am, you read the register and other sites, you'll be hearing a lot about Nix OS because Nix OS is popular now. It's hip, it's hype, it's the cool new thing. Everybody loves it. The kids are doing it. That's how cool it is. So Nix OS, to give the simplest description, is a Linux distribution that uses the Nix package manager. The Nix package manager is a package management system that can be installed onto Linux and Mac OS systems as well. So you can put it on top of your Fedora system, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so everything inside Nix OS is controlled by the Nix package manager, including the kernel. But let's start with the basics. Cancel. Boom, 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 boom. So every Nix system has a configuration file on it. And that controls how it's laid out here. And let's go to term.
This one you should be able to make bigger.
Yes. Yeah, we're a little further along in the evolutionary hierarchy. I do like the fact that GNOME in the new versions turns the border at the top red when you go to sudo. That's a nice feature. Guy I work with mentioned that. So we'll do Nano because I did not install that on here yet.
Nix install Vim.
Nix install,
So I don't have that installed right now. So I got no real hope on this. But so this configuration file controls what is on your system. Oops. Yeah. So here's how it's laid out: the bootloader, the devices, all the basic information on it. And you're going to see that how much do I struggle using the core concepts of Nano. We'll see how it goes. So system doesn't have everything I want it. Oh, here we go. List of packages installed the system profile. Well, we're going to get Vim. Well, we're going to get wget. And we're going to do it the Nix way.
Add an editor. Edit.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Control
Control X regs, right? Yeah, save modified buffer. So we have now modified the file. It has a different configuration file now. Now we have to apply it, and let's do that, which is on the next slide. So we do Nix OS. And what this will do now is rebuild the system by that configuration file. And the switch will put me into that environment. So I don't have to reboot or anything because that has that capability. It's not quite the same as Silverblue in that respect. And I can talk for a minute while I wait for this to happen because I need VI. Let's just be honest. Years ago, I went on to a place and I was still using Emacs at the time. And I'm like, hey, you guys don't have Emacs? Like, no, we don't. It's like, man space VI. That's because every place you go will have VI, unless you're using Nix, in which case you don't. But it's pulling everything it needs down. It's doing all sorts of wonderful behind the scenes thing. So if I were to pick up this configuration file and give it to someone else, they run the switch rebuild, they'll get the same configuration. They'll have the exact same settings I do, the same files, same everything at the top level. So it's a way to actually control that entire environment. And one thing, if you use environments like Replit, they have like a user space, a Nix environment. So you can control that and it'll actually build what you want. So if you're doing Node.js development in Replit or inside a container, you can actually control that stuff. So it's kind of cool. Come on. Yes. So follow me. Don't raise your hand, just ask, man. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of like the system D where I can put just like micro nano configuration stuff.
Yeah.
And if I don't want anymore, I just delete that file.
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of problems lately with mixing ASCII and Unicode, big Indian, little Indian, all in one file.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that, I mean, is there some way to break up a big file like that?
I think it's got the glue capabilities, but everybody just puts it in the next file, because you do individual stuff at the lower level, this is the system level. That you can do individual, you can do packages at the individual level as well. So you can put them under the system without it being inside the next configuration file. You can just roll it back. Okay, so now we have VI, yes,
Yay.
and we have wget, which is good. And here's where, let's take a look at how this magic happens. Do which wget, it's installed the version of that. This. It puts under RPM current system software bin VI. Because I had wget installed as a user before, but didn't let me see it. So it has the capabilities that you can actually do a whole bunch of stuff with it. I'm still trying to figure out why that's showing up in both places. It
maybe
should,
one's a pointer.
it could be. Let's find out now. Here's something cool, which we'll talk about a bit more. It has the capability to create something called shells. Shells are short-term things. I want to run a command, but I don't care about it beyond this. Now I have file. Because I'm inside this shell. So if I do. It is a symbolic link to the upper case one, yes. So,
Good follow.
yes. So now when I go away from shell, it's leaving find on there. You weasel.
File.
Oh, file. File is gone again. I was doing find instead of file. You get to a certain point, you get loopy in the day. But it gives you an idea what it can kind of do, because it has a configuration file for the base system. So if we want to install software, let's go ahead and install some software. Nix env-ia, Nix OS, Python 2. And you went ahead and install Python 2. So now if I do which Python 2, it's got the version that's in my local directory. I do which Python 3, it'll be the version that's not in my home directory, but it'll be the version it's sim linked up to. So I was able to install a package and I installed it just as myself. I didn't install it as root. So it's able to do that underneath the environment. So it gives me that capability. Yes, Rob, you gotta look.
Well, okay, so.
Yeah.
You just say that even though that looks like it's installed in your home directory, it's actually a symbolic way.
That's for the other ones. That's for the wget and vim. Those are installed from the other one.
So, I mean, just the thing I hate is
Yeah.
having stuff installed in each different meters folder.
Yes, that is exactly one of the problems with Nix at this level. Is I can install Python 2, you install Python 2, he installs Python 2, and all of a sudden the system, you got 3 times the overhead on it. So you've got to figure out what you want to do in terms of the individual user's environment and stuff like that. It can be a pain in that respect. So if we do which ls, that shows us RPM run current system software bin ls is the version that's running there. And we do which Python 2. It's the version I just installed a couple minutes ago. So you can do all sorts of stuff in terms of versioning and stuff like that. Nix has like 70,000 packages available for it. It's got a lot of stuff. But let's take a look and see. I'm trying to remember, is that 1 or 2? Whenever I do, it's going to be wrong.
It's like 2.
Yeah. So I got Python installed here. Let's go ahead and uninstall one. Nix env uninstall. Now let's get rid of both of them.
Yeah, do a double.
Yes, I do. You are absolutely correct. So now the Python's gone. So if you want to spend about 5 minutes waiting, you can do a nix env-qa, which will show you all the available packages, which will kick off and we'll just let it run for a while. But there's all sorts of packages available for it. It asks you questions during the install, like, do you want to install the non-free software packages, all that kind of stuff. And it bases the tree around that. So Nix is its own entire thing. If you're a developer and you want to create your own custom environment, stuff like that, this is pretty cool stuff. Nix OS largely exists as a demonstration of the Nix package manager. That's what their main purpose for creating it was. And some people love it, and I think it's a great OS in its own right, especially for smaller systems. You start thinking about like embedded type systems, having that level of control over it and stuff is a really cool thing. So why is it cool? Oh, one thing I didn't mention, which we'll talk about in a minute, reproducible builds. But reproducible system configurations. So if I pull the configuration file, like I said, it'll work anywhere. Very cool design. The entire system from the kernel up is defined through those declaration files, similar declaration files, that Nix configuration file. You can rebuild the whole thing from scratch using those files. Rollbacks lets you boot the system and take a look at the available boot options for post configurations. So here's some of the packages available for this bad boy, which is interesting, is all right, but let's just get out of this. Let's go reboot. And the reboot here is actually kind of cool. Let's see what you get. So we take a look at all configurations. So these are all the configurations I've created over time, over the time I've been playing with this.
Interesting.
So we go back to configuration 1. We'll be back to the initial pristine state of the environment, which of course for me means no VI, which it's not good. But you can clean those up and handle all the components of dealing with it and stuff like that, however you want to. How far back? You're using up additional space, of course, when you're doing it. So let's just fire it up real quick. Come on, baby. Work with me. So VI is on the system, which I don't know why it is in this case. Yes, it did.
Is there a command you could run to tell you what you're in?
I think it might have numbered. I think it might have numbered them back. I think it might be numbered off backwards. I think 5 might be the oldest. I might be off on this because I've only played around this. I had 2 or 3.
Well, yeah.
So
Although that's odd from the grub list that was on the bottom. Usually it's in the way.
yeah, let's do a reboot again.
Or what's proc command line say?
Huh?
Did I tell you? Proc CMD1.
Well, let's give it a shot. What was that?
/proc.
Log 4 Nix OS 11.11.15.998. Let's reboot it real quick. We'll reboot. It takes just a minute. We got a minute for this one. But Nix is a cool environment because of the way it's laid out. Let's take a look at all configurations. Let's go to
The date, they're all dated though.
yeah.
That one's today.
I may have had. Let's go back to the previous one. Let's go back to the 4 because I went back to 1. I may have already installed it. Keep in mind, this is part of the overhead of having a system that has rollbacks. Is you got to know what the hell you're rolling back to. If you're just randomly pulling crap out of your butt, you're going to end up like we are now to figure out what's going on.
Load save game.
All right. All right. So I've got something. I do not know why it's happening. This was working earlier. I swear to God on this. I'm not sure what I'm
Well,
on.
you change the configuration versus install.
Well, but that should have been the same, but that should have that should be rolled back. That's a good point. Yeah, let's see. It still has it enabled, huh? Okay. Well, we're gonna write this off to my having a failure, so. Rollback supposedly lets you go back to the system I wanted to.
Do you have another, how much more do you have?
Oh, we got to talk about, we haven't talked about geeks yet and a couple of things.
I'm
Yeah.
interested to try something.
Yeah. So the Nix shell, we talked about that a little bit. A Nix shell lets you create a temporary command. Let's say you want to do something with git. And you don't have git installed, you can do Nix shell -p git. And now you've got git. And when you exit the shell,
It's off.
git goes away. So it gives you the capability to do that. Reproducible builds. This is something that is very cool that a lot of people are working towards. If you look at this environment variable, it tells you how to install, create a Nix shell, install Python into it, install Django into it. And anyone using that recipe will get the same Django environment, exactly the same Django environment. So you have the same files, same permissions, same everything. So if you check any component of it, it will be locked. It's actually really cool in that respect. So the Nix package manager can be used without using Nix OS distribution. The Nix package manager is very cool in its own right, but it's a technology demonstrator, but a lot of people are behind it. A lot of people are really kind of liking it nowadays. Next one we're gonna talk about real quick is Geeks OS. The herd is coming. So the FSS, the Free Software Foundation, over time has endorsed a lot of free distributions. They have to have a certain set of rules. They have to use a certain kernel, all this kind of stuff. There was Dragora, Diabolic, Gwix, or Geeks is correctly pronounced, Hyperbola, Parabola, PureOS, TriSQL, U2S, and some other ones out there as well. But the Geeks OS is a distribution built by the GNU group themselves, actually. The Geeks package manager is based on the Nix package manager, almost exactly. But Geeks OS has several major changes in Nix OS. First off, Geeks is written as Guile, a scheme-based language. If you ever spend time with playing around with Emacs and stuff like that, they use Lisp as their basic language for years and years. So scheme makes sense. So let's pop over to the Geek system. Come on.
Did it capture your mouse?
Is this Richard Stallman approved?
Yes, it is actually, not the presentation, but the, let me reboot the darn thing. But Geeks is its own thing. It's a lot like Nix. It just has a little nicer syntax in some respects. Come on.
It's not taking it.
Oh, you're going down. If you, everyone else using VirtualBox 7, it is really nice. They made some really nice enhancements to it. It is really nice.
You want to shut down some of your other VMs while they're,
We got 16 gig of RAM, we're fine.
well, yeah, but CPU wise.
Yeah. Da-ba-da-ba-boom. I'm gonna beat that Nix box when I get home. And this was actually one that kind of the installer, and this is kind of funky because the way it asks you how to break up your disk, it defaults to exit the installer. And so I was going through the installer real quick, and I was like, it kept kicking me out when I got to the partition to drop disk because it didn't have the default the way I'm used to it. All right, here we go.
Looks like a good new.
Oh yeah, that's this whole idea, man. This is them showing us what it should look like.
What the impression when I saw those icons? It's like Xerox GUI or early Mac.
Yeah, that's kind of what they're going for. So to update the system, yeah, oh, let's do it quick. We'll kick it off and just let it run. So Geeks pull, Geeks package -A. We'll go out and pull everything. It does the whole versioning the same way. Yep. Their port of GitHub, but so to install a package, let that run while we do this as well. We'll try to do 2 at the same time. Geeks, search, Firefox. And you don't get Firefox. You know why? Ice Cat. I don't know. I have not tried doing these commands at the same time when they're running at the top of each other. We'll see how this goes. It should install inside my personal environment, so it shouldn't be a problem. Sometimes it's just running it as myself.
Well, the untitled is now red.
So installing a package is as simple as saying geeks install a package, which is kind of nice. They got a little nicer syntax than Nix does in some respects. And remove a package is just geeks remove the package. So what makes Wix interesting? Just because we'll just cover that one pretty quickly because it's a lot like Nix. The Geeks package manager is written in Guile, very scheme, which I always find interesting. It only supports free software. There is no regular commercial in patented software like in patented and stuff like that. It uses the Linux Libre kernel, which if you ever use Libre kernel in the past, is a Linux kernel with all the binary objects removed out of it. So it's just the straight basic version. It uses the GNU Shepherd init system, which you'll learn to hate really quickly. It's as simple as this. I type shutdown space -h space now. Yes. What do you think it's going to do?
Are you sure?
No, it goes not the right arguments to the command. It's shut down. And then it shuts it down. It's all slightly different. And init is its own thing. But one of the reasons why they're using init is because they want to be able to flip out to other kernels. Because they want to be able to support the BSD kernel. Yeah. So there's a project to do that. They want to be able to support herd. They want to support other things like that. So, but this is the FSF showing this is what we would create if we created a distribution. So it's actually cool in its own right. I mean, it's well worth a spin. And it's going to just keep going and going and going. I've got both these going at the same time, and it's going to beat me up. So we're almost out of time, so I'll go over the rest of them pretty quickly. 2 other interesting distributions. One is called Endless OS. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It is an immutable OS built on top of Debian with Flatpak. It uses OS tree. It has a 17 gigabyte download because it wants you to have everything you need. There's also like 2 or 4 gigs as well, but it's really a cool little thing. It's interesting that it's trying to be a beginner's OS and it's using some of the more cutting edge technology. Another one that's really interesting is Pop OS. This is from System 76. They're writing a new desktop written in Rust, which of course is something I keep yammering about. No one else seems to really care about except for me and a couple of people on the kernel side. So that's 2 other interesting distributions. Another one that I just was playing with last night is called Vanilla OS. Vanilla OS takes Ubuntu, straight GNOME, and uses something called AB root. And so what it does is it works the way like similar to how your phone does. Your phone by default has 2 root partitions. Whatever one's running is supposedly set to read-only. I mean, it's set to read-only. And whenever you install an update, it installs it to the other one that you reboot into that environment. And they're trying to bring that technology to Ubuntu. And they're using things like Toolbox, stuff like that to do all the user type stuff.
Well, it was originally put out in the Chromebooks.
Yeah, it comes from Chromebooks and that. So I mean, what 500 million people are using this, so I mean, it must not work too bad. But it's also Endless Vanilla OS is created by the guy who did a Bottles, which is a very cool project for doing the wine stuff to keep it separate from each other. So he's trying that at an OS level, which I find very, very interesting. So he's doing that stuff. Another one to consider is Spiral Linux. Spiral Linux is a Debian rolling distribution that uses BetterFS and does some snapshotting stuff behind the scenes because it uses a more modern file system. So it has its own cool components. So yes. So summaries. Each of these distributions has something new that it brings to the party. Silverblue, atomic updates, rollbacks, toolbox. Gabo is goodbye LFHS, easy package management. NixOS has shells, configuration scripts, reproducible builds. QuickOS is a free OS in the speech version of it, which is kind of cool in its own right. But each one of those is worth a VM or trying it out. If you want to see what the future is going to look like, because some of these ideas are going to come into it, because Chromebooks have proven that mutable OSs and AB stuff is actually pretty popular. And a lot of people like it, especially if you start taking it, trying to get it from being just an OS for us to being an OS for everybody. You got to have the capability to come back up and stuff. I mean, that's one thing that Windows does pretty well, is they do figure that stuff out after a while. So each one's got something, and whatever the distribution we were using in 5 years from now is, it's going to be a lot of containers, it's going to be immutable, and it's going to have some of these type of rollback features in it. So that's all I got. Anybody got any questions? Anybody online got any questions?
Still running in the background.
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna let it run till we're done. So I have ice
Hey,
cap.
Can you use the Nix package manager with Ubuntu and Fedora and all those friends?
Can you use the Nix package manager with Ubuntu and Fedora?
Yes.
Nice.
It works with it works with about every distribution, but it won't be able to do stuff at the it won't be able to manage your OS, but it will be able to manage your user space. And some of the shell stuff does work as well.
But you could let your
It's
programming
kinda cool
staff,
designed that way.
you could let your programming staff Nix install whatever they wanted.
You could let your
Right.
programming staff install what they want through Nix.
Yes, that's the idea behind it. And you also, if you're using, you can take the same, you can build the same environment you have at home as you have at work by taking that Nix CMV file.
Nice. I like it. Thank you.
Double it when you have a question. Anyone else?
So somebody's sign up to talk next month, or else it'll be
Yes,
bad
please.
we have 10 slots. to
Bruce
fill.
was inquiring about the time limits. And he was asking if it had to be a 30, a 45, or a 60, and I said yes.
Yeah, I went a little over an hour, so
Bruce, I want to hear what you have to say.
it's
Give a
all
talk.
good.
Bruce.
Bruce, you don't have to be here to do it. You can remote.
All right, let me see what I come up with in a week and I'll let you know.
Yeah, let Dave know.
I just finished. So we have an up-to-date version of it.
That would be wonderful.
What's he gonna talk about?
He said he's gonna get back to him and let him know.
Oh,
The hypervisor XCP&G
Oh,
runs on CentOS.
hypervisor that runs under Cent. XP what?
XCP&G, it's the next generation of Zen server.
XCP-ng.
oh, Zen. That'd be very cool.
If we don't have any other questions, I can end the recording. We can
Thanks,
stop
everybody.
that. Dave, any other announcements before we go?
No other announcements. Let me know if you are able to speak next month, and I will see you on February 7th. Good night.